So Sony held their big state of play, I guess. I mean, I don't know if it's something I'd consider big. And Microsoft kind of had a little bit of an interesting response that I wanted to get into a little bit. Because, again, Microsoft is really kind of working very handedly with PlayStation on, getting a lot of these games and things like that into the PlayStation ecosystem and things like that. And you can kind of understand possibly why they're doing that. With the Xbox consoles not exactly lighting the world on fire in terms of sales and things of that nature. But, at the same point in time, you kind of wish that Microsoft would keep some stuff behind, because when you look at what Sony's getting, they're still obviously paying for exclusivity on a lot of these types of games, and that's kind of an unfortunate thing all the way across, because Microsoft's not doing that. But let's get into it. I'm Crap Gamer. This is Crap Gamer Reviews, back with another video. Thank you so much for checking it out. I appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe. I would appreciate that as well. It means a lot to me. It helps the channel out tremendously. And if you're looking for someone to do daily content, you found them. I try to do something fun yet informative every day. So yeah, again, there were some interesting things. It's nice to know that Xbox is going to get Final Fantasy Tactics and things like that for the first time. I think that really says a lot about going forward. Hopefully Microsoft gets those Square Enix games. I know a lot of fans that actually want to see that kind of stuff. So again, bravo to Microsoft for getting it. So, it was an interesting response, in my opinion. Microsoft actually came out and announced the entire Xbox Game Pass lineup, and it has some pretty interesting stuff in there. I think a lot of people are going to be excited for it, and so I guess that's what Microsoft is going to do. I mean, that's not like some major response. I think, obviously their showcase isn't going to be much of a response. I think, if anything, it's going to show that there's a lot of people that are going to be excited on the PlayStation and Nintendo side to have those games on their platform. So, but it is an interesting list. Highlights include Space Marine Master Crafted Edition, which is that new remaster of the Space Marine game, and apparently it's a timed exclusive for Xbox, which I think is pretty cool. Probably nothing to do with what Microsoft paid or anything, just probably more or less having to do with, it'll probably take a little bit of time for that to actually come out on the PlayStation to get a port and things like that. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. Also, EA Sports FC 25, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, which I think is a incredible game. I actually really like that game and think it's awesome. But the lineup includes Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, Baldur's Gate 2 Enhanced Edition, Space Marine Master Crafted Edition, Barbie Project Friendship, Kingdom, Two Crowns, EA Sports FC 25, that's through EA Play, of course, The Alters, Crash Bandicoot 4, About Time, FBC Firebreak, Lost in Random, The Eternal Die. So yeah, we do have that to kind of look forward to. So yeah, I think that's all pretty cool stuff to be coming out, and nice to see Microsoft continue to add a lot of value to Game Pass. Along with these, we already know that 8 games will be leaving Game Pass as well, which will be discounted before they leave. But still, I think it's cool that we're starting to see some more of the Activision stuff end up in Game Pass, and I also think that it's cool to see stuff like, I'm sure people will probably give a try to Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2. Those games, in my opinion, which is interesting that they only came to the console and the cloud, not the PC side of things. And the reason why that's interesting is because these are more of PC games, in my opinion, than console games. So yeah, we do have that to kind of look at and look into as as kind of a weird situation, especially given Microsoft's view of the console lately, and they don't really seem to care much about it. And it's also funny because if you guys remember to the FTC leaks back in the day, we saw a situation where they looked at Baldur's Gate 3, which ended up being like a huge hit, by the way. That game they looked at as like a mid game, like that they could get for pretty cheap on Game Pass, and that game still isn't on Game Pass, and has seen incredible success. So anything can change. So yeah, but I think those days are kind of gone where you see huge stuff like that. But again, still, it's a really good month. It goes to show that there's value. I think Microsoft is probably pushing Game Pass a lot more than what they had in the past. And I think I really think that their showcase this weekend is going to be all about the Game Pass stuff, and that's going to be super interesting to say the least, and Microsoft, they're a changing brand, and I think that's a bad thing in a lot of ways, and we'll have to see how it works out for them in terms of what they're going to be able to accomplish later on in after this generation. Will they even be a thing? I think that's the thing that we're going to have to wait and see the most on. I personally hope that they continue to make consoles and continue to do the things that they need to do in order to drive engagement and in order to make things kind of pan out for the industry. I think not just for Xboxes. I know a lot of people think that I have this kind of weird outlook that consoles are this or consoles are that, but for me anyway, I'm kind of looking at things in a little bit different perspective and saying, hey, consoles are here to stay, and despite the fact that Microsoft is giving away their games, there's still a reason to own consoles. I don't know if we're going to continue to see a lot of that stuff, we obviously won't see a lot of exclusives and things on Xbox anymore, but that doesn't mean that Xbox still won't be a decent place to play a lot of these games and things, and I think some people have kind of come to grips with that, and I think that's great. At the end of the day, we're gamers and we're all trying to make sure that we have fun stuff to play, and Microsoft, they seem to be on board with that. Whether or not they're on board with exclusives or any of the other stuff, I think that remains to be seen, but still, from what I can see, it does look like at least the content is finally coming down the pipeline, which is a good thing. I mean, look, we all wanted content. Yeah, I would wish that it would be more exclusive content, but hey, what can you say? It's funny too, because the Baldur's Gate games actually appeared on Game Pass with no prior announcement. Those could be some of the best announcements. Microsoft being a bit late with this Game Pass roundup for this month, we didn't know what was coming to the service ahead of time, but evidently a couple of Baldur's Gate games were part of the plans according to this. Specifically, Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2, both enhanced editions, have appeared on Game Pass, available on Xbox One, Series X, and Series S, as well as the cloud, and you can play them right now. Both these games have been released separately in the past, but they've combined for the Xbox port, meaning you only need to download the one file. As the name suggests, they're both enhanced versions of the original game and the second game from the early 90s and early 2000s. And basically the description for him goes as this: gather your party, the RPG saga returns, immerse yourself in an epic RPG series where every choice matters, play over 100 hours of adventure in enhanced edition of Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2, plus the full Siege of Dragonspear expansion. Experience a new chapter in the Baldur's Gate saga of Dragonspear and a full expansion of Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition with 25 plus hours of adventure. So it sounds like, if you like these type of top-down games, you'll probably enjoy them. They're not my bag. Even Baldur's Gate 3, with all the success it's seen, definitely not my cup of tea, but we'll see if how this stuff all works out. I think you can't go wrong with having a bunch of things that you can kind of choose from to play. Variety is the spice of life at the end of the day, and we're seeing that more and more from Microsoft, and maybe we'll continue to see that in the future. I hope so. I hope Microsoft continues to do the things that they can do to get people interested in Xbox. I would hate to see Xbox end up going away, but at the same point in time, we'll see what happens. I just find it to be a very interesting time. I mean, heck, the Switch 2 releases, you've got Sony lowering prices, Xbox raising prices. It's just a big calamity cluster F at this particular point. So we'll have to see if that works out for anybody in the future. I think it's going to be difficult to say, but nice to see that Microsoft has some cool stuff coming to the platform. And, at the end of the day, I think that's pretty awesome. to see. So what do you guys feel about the Game Pass value? I think it's been unmatched this year in particular. Nice little roundup of games to come out, especially given that Sony was like, hey, we got, you know, all these games at our State of Play or whatever. I'm actually surprised we didn't see something like Starfield at their State of Play. I think that would be a huge get for them, and eventually I'm sure it will come to them, but we'll see what's up. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Rack 'em up. Please like the video. Crep Gamer out.